Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Sideliners. It's our little
The
podcast.
Sideliners, yes.
Welcome. We're very excited to have you here. Talk some football. Let's get right into it. College football recap. This week had a lot going on. Notre Dame takes down Clemson in a dogfight in overtime. It's some interesting calls, but whatever. That's fine.
It
John,
is what it is.
let's get your top four for this week. Let's hear it.
I have Alabama at number 1, of course. They've been dominant all year.
Absolutely.
Ohio State at 2. It's still early season for them, but by the way they were last year, they've got to be number 2. And then 3 is Notre Dame over Clemson, who's number 4. I don't have A&M in my top 4, but I think they still have a chance at making the playoffs.
Sounds good to me. I agree with all of it. Yeah, I think that all sounds good. Ben, what do we got?
I also agree with the latter.
Some
Or the
unanimous,
former.
a unanimous decision from the
Yes.
gang.
Brad, who do you have for your Heisman top 3?
Heisman top 3. Got a lot of good, solid candidates this year, but I think just like Ben was number 1, you got to give Mac Jones number 1. He's also been dominant all year. Hasn't been a close game, really, except for Ole Miss. Number 2, you got Justin Fields. Again, same kind of philosophy. And then I have Trevor Lawrence at my 3rd because, 2 weeks of COVID is going to slow him down, but honestly, he's been so dominant. We'll see how it plays out.
I agree, but I just can't have Justin Fields up there. I have Trevor Lawrence at number 1. Don't think this COVID break's taking him back anywhere. I have Mac Jones at 2. He's been very dominant, as you said. And I have Zach Wilson, who's been looking great this year. I don't have any... I don't have Haskins. No, what?
Haskins.
What am I talking about?
What are you talking about? I want to talk about Zach Wilson actually for a second because I think he has been playing really well, but he still isn't getting enough recognition. I actually sat down and watched the BYU Boise game last Friday, and oh my God, they are good. On defense too, but he makes every single pass look easy. They totally are unstoppable. Put up, 58? Something like that. Against Boise, a ranked team on the road. Looked really good. I don't have him in the top 3 just because I don't think he gets the national attention that the other 3 get. But I think he honestly probably deserves to be
That
up
is
there.
scary college football team to go on the road to. That is
Definitely.
a very scary.
Ben, you have any disparity in your Heisman rankings this week?
I do, actually. I say Mac Jones at number 1. Alabama has been dominant all season, as we've all said. I think Justin Fields, OSU, coming in hot. And I think that potentially they could jump to number 2.
Potentially.
Behind the play of Justin Fields. And then
Once Notre Dame loses to Boston College this week, we'll talk more about that
we
later.
will talk more about that. We have a lot to say about that. And then number 3, I have Kyle Trask. I think Florida has been pretty good, and I think that he's leading them very well. I don't know if they have a bid for the playoffs, but
They win the SEC. They probably could do it.
they maybe could. We'll have to
They're
wait
in
and
good
see.
control to make the SEC championship, taking down Georgia last week. Another big game.
Control their own destiny.
Fun game in the first half, kind of a blowout in the second, I would say.
Yep. All right, so next thing I want to talk about, this year it seems like more than ever, the group of 5 has gotten some good attention.
Yeah.
There have been fun teams like Liberty taking down Virginia Tech on a last-second field goal last week. You got Coastal Carolina. It's been fun to watch them all year.
Coastal Carolina has been very fun to watch, I will say. They've been very fun.
Yeah, their field is funny. They have like a turquoise,
Yeah.
there's some turquoise turf going on.
Yeah.
Marshall, another ranked group of 5 team that honestly I don't know a whole lot about, but I know they're ranked and they're undefeated, and we'll see if they play anyone good. And then you got the big 2, it seems like, Cincinnati and BYU, the only ones that have a, I would say, legitimate shot at the playoff. They've both looked really dominant. I personally think BYU is better, but Cincinnati really has looked dominant against some decent teams. We'll see. You guys, do either of you think that either of these teams will be able to make the playoff?
I don't think that any of them could make the playoffs unless BYU goes undefeated.
Which they probably will.
You never know, they could. They've made it in past years. Not recent, but past years. BYU's been pretty dominant. This year, they're putting up Alabama numbers. I'd also like to speak out on Liberty. This has been really fun to watch. Kind of a Cinderella story.
He was really excited to talk about Liberty, guys. Really excited.
That game last week was that ending.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Crazy.
Well, Virginia Tech blocks the field goal and they return it, but they took a timeout and it gets called back. Liberty kicker lines it up again, knocks it through, and they take them down. And they honestly, so the very last week of the regular season, we get Liberty and Coastal. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a great game. I'm pretty excited to watch that one.
So the moral of the story is to be nice and not ice the kicker.
Yeah, exactly. Reminds me of a couple weeks ago, Cardinals versus Seahawks, marquee matchup. Zane Gonzalez.
He was on my fantasy team at the time.
That may be a blessing.
At the time.
Ooh.
Hey,
that's rough. That is rough. And so Cardinals with a chance to win. Zane Gonzalez kicks it straight through the uprights, and lo and behold, Kingsbury calls a timeout and goes back out on the field. So essentially icing your own kicker. Bold strategy. I wouldn't personally do it, but goes back onto the field, misses it. Ultimately didn't hinder them as much. He kicks the game-winning field goal at the end.
You love to see it.
But that game with Liberty, I mean, if they lose that game, I mean, who knows where they end up? They probably might not even be ranked.
Yeah, but then that would mean Coastal wins that game, which is really it's exciting to watch all of them. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So the next thing, speaking of funny teams, I guess we've got the MAC. They started up a couple weeks ago, and it seems like we have football this week at least. We had football every single day of the week. On Monday, you've got the NFL. On Tuesday, you get half the MAC, and then last night on Wednesday, you get the other half of the MAC. And it seems like kind of the most irrelevant conference based on just they don't have any ranked teams. They were the last ones to start playing. But last night, you got Western Michigan and Toledo. Western Michigan scores. They miss the extra point, so they're down by 4 with about 40 seconds left. They recover the onside kick and then drive down the field, and the game-winning touchdown comes on a fake spike. It was very, very nice. Really good looking, honestly.
I always say special teams makes or breaks the game. You have to always watch out, and mistakes are made.
Very analytical.
Yes, very analytical.
So, love the MAC on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
I really like
this. Nice having football all week.
Yeah.
Gives us more to talk about, too. So, I guess it's time to transition over to the NFL, and we want to talk about kind of which teams we think are for real and which ones are kind of pretenders, maybe. So, if either of you would like to start on that, please go ahead.
I will start. So, first of all, my name is Ben. Depressed Cowboys fan.
Welcome.
Pass interference enthusiast. And advocate for restarting the San Antonio Spurs rebuild and going to a championship within the next 2 years.
They're coming out with uniforms tomorrow?
Oh, yes. Cool. That excites me.
They're like the old,
the 90s uniforms coming back for the Spurs.
Anyways, we can talk more about basketball in the future, maybe. Although our name is Sideliners. But I guess that goes with any sport.
Hey,
except for like baseball.
Curling.
The curling Sideliners.
When you play left bench, it applies to everything.
Yes, sir.
Obviously. But getting back on topic.
Right. Pretenders for real.
So for real, obviously, defending champions, the Chiefs, they've looked great all year. Patrick Mahomes is, doing things that a quarterback has not done. Yeah. Fastest.
You could say he's magical.
Magic Mahomes.
You could say that.
Fastest to 100 touchdowns, passing Dan Marino. You love to see it. You do love to see it.
Okay.
And
I like that.
So, to the contrary of my partners here, I say that the Steelers are for real. And I say this because I think that Big Ben has bounced back.
He's hurt.
Well, yes. However, up to this point in the season.
Okay, fair enough. What was a good comeback year for him? They are 8-0.
Yes. Big Ben has come back this year.
And Claypool. Claypool.
Chase Claypool has, at least in the fantasy realm.
Unless you have Juju, then it's not very exciting.
Yeah, that may be one of the only hindrance on the Steelers season this year. But I think that the defense looks great. Minka Fitzpatrick is
very good defense.
Would you say
you may recall actually first game of the season when the Giants were playing the Steelers, you made a bet to me that Minka Fitzpatrick would pick off Daniel Jones in the first half. And that did not happen.
Well.
Go Giants.
Money was not on the line there, but very good defense. Depending on the status of Big Ben, I think that they are most likely going to win their division.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. You've been talking about the Steelers too long.
Okay.
Do you have any other teams that you wanted to address?
I think the Cardinals, Kyler Murray has been great this season.
Okay, awesome. John.
All right. As Ben said, he's a Cowboys fan. I'm a Saints fan. Parents lived there, grew up. Just love the state.
Awesome.
It's no bias too. The Saints are going. The way they looked against the Bucs this week has just been crazy. I want to get back to the Bucs in a second.
But how do we know that it wasn't a 1 week wonder kind of thing?
Because they've been. See, I think their offense has played that way on that level, but they haven't had a target like Michael Thomas, and having Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders back.
Just adds another level of
Drew Brees can
depth.
Just diversify to anyone he can go to.
Hey man, those 10-yard checkdowns do wonders.
The slants.
I do. Drew Brees passed it to like 11 different receivers in the first half, which is crazy.
That is insane.
I have Green Bay. Offense has looked really good. Defense has been unstable at times, but what can you do? It's a defense. Chiefs, obviously, they look so good. Won the Super Bowl last year. Patrick Mahomes is playing out of his mind. And I have the Bills, who look really good. I like Josh Allen. He looks good. He kind of had a slump, but he's looked good. That entire offense is just fit together this year.
Yeah.
And
I definitely wanted to talk about the Bills coming from someone that had to go up against Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in fantasy last week. It's not a fun time.
God bless your soul.
Thank you. I also want to talk about the Ravens. I think they did lose to the Steelers, but they played them well. And Lamar Jackson obviously is having an underwhelming year. But I think they kind of pull it all together. The defense has been playing better, I would say, than people expected.
Yeah.
They don't have the receivers, but they've got a couple solid running backs like Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Mm-hmm. And if Lamar kind of figures it out, puts up numbers he was putting up last year, I think they can make a deep run. And yeah, so that's all y'all.
Yeah, I like J.K. Dobbins.
Well, I want to go back to the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are the most unpredictable team in the NFL.
Right. You were saying earlier about they can go as far as their defense will allow them to go.
Yeah. Yes, the defense, with the exception of the Cowboys, that Seahawks defense is horrible. And
it is pretty bad.
I don't know if Russell Wilson can just will his team to maybe even the conference championship, much less a Super Bowl with that defense. But if he can, more power to him. But the Seahawks are definitely one to watch.
Yeah.
All right, now something I am so excited to talk about.
The
highly coveted NFC East race.
First off, just get rid of the division.
So we've got a couple NFC East fans here. As Ben said earlier, he's a Cowboys fan, and I am a Giants fan. Which, living in Texas, it's a little weird being a Giants fan, and a lot depressing, just like Ben. But my totally unbiased opinion on who I think is going to win the division, it's going to be the Giants for sure. They string together a couple wins. We take care of business this week against the Eagles. We still have to play the Seahawks and the Ravens and the Browns and the Cardinals. But, we'll get it done.
Things are looking tough at the back end of the schedule.
Things are, looking up as Daniel Jones, for the second time in his career, did not have a turnover last week.
Hey, the fumble king is making a comeback.
He's making
season.
moves. Mm-hmm. He's hard not to like.
He is Danny Dimes.
Yeah, of course.
I would say coming out of the NFC East, I would say the Eagles, just because they do have the best record, but I do think that they are able to pull off some wins in unconventional
The only thing about the Eagles, they're obviously sitting in the best spot right now, but since they finished first in the division last year, they have an even harder end of the season than the Giants because they have to play like the first place teams from the other divisions. And they also have dealt with some injuries as well. Miles Sanders is coming back, but
that injury list is very long.
Miles Sanders looked good at the beginning of the year.
He still looks good. I mean, yeah, he's had a good year, surprisingly, I would say.
So I think that the Eagles are in, I would say, a better position than the Giants. But going back to maybe a dark horse is the football team. I think that they are the most well put together. That defensive line is crazy. Kerrigan, Jonathan Allen,
Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin on.
Just traded for him on fantasy this week.
Oh yes, if you have him, please start him. On offense, at wide receiver, he's probably the only weapon that they have going for them right now, per se.
Yeah.
Besides their defense.
Antonio Gibson. We need to talk about Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. And J.D. McKissick coming out of there.
McKissick has looked good too, but the Washington football defense has just been, I don't know.
Couldn't stop the Giants in the first half, though.
This year, I feel like.
Again, they could not stop the Giants in the first half last week. I will make note of that.
That is true, which is pretty sad. Eagles look shaky as always, but I feel like they're gonna pull it out.
Yeah. I would say that's the
I'd like to read off these their records. Eagles are 3-4 and 1.
I think it's well known. Everybody. I think we got it. I don't know if I am subject to hearing that right now.
The always funny imposter memes.
Right. Yeah, we get it. We got it.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, though.
I was just gonna say they're the only team with 4 losses. All the other teams have 6 and 7, which is hard to come back from.
True.
Especially with the schedule that the Giants have and the just heartbreaking injuries that the Cowboys have had. And
well, the reality is 5 wins will probably win the division. 6 wins will definitely win the division. So it kind of just depends on how if any team can steal a win that isn't against if the Giants go and beat the Bengals or something, and also beat the Cowboys in the Eagles, then it's gonna have to be something like that. Okay, so there's some dispute over this one, but we were kind of talking about true mobile quarterbacks and kind of who classifies as a true mobile quarterback. You obviously got Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson.
The obvious ones per se.
Yes. But I mean, there's a lot of sneaky guys that are more mobile than you would think. Maybe like a Josh Allen, or a Daniel Jones.
Like Daniel Jones.
We were kind of talking about that, but in the sense of like a true mobile quarterback, maybe runs just as much as they pass. I don't know if anyone does that, but a heavy amount of running. Is this the year that one of them makes a deep playoff run? Do the Cardinals make a deep playoff run? Do the Ravens make a deep playoff run? The Seahawks are capable, and they have in the past.
Yeah.
But the only difference with that is that the Legion of Boom,
of course, they had a good defense.
Was in their prime, and the Seahawks do not have the Legion of Boom for a few years now.
Yeah.
And, however, I do think that the Ravens again look a little shaky with Lamar at quarterback, and of course the playoff woes.
Oh wait, no, sorry. No, what am I talking about? The Ravens.
Yeah, and
I'm tripping.
Lamar's playoff woes are definitely something to look at. He hasn't made it.
For him. This is the year he turns it around. I think the defense is playing, like I said, better than people thought, and I think maybe this is the year they make it around.
I know we've all heard of a sophomore slump. It's just after if you have a great rookie year, your sophomore year you struggle. Well, Lamar had a great sophomore year. So I think he's having a slump. So the question is, can he get out of that?
So then, are the expectations too high? Because when we remember Lamar Jackson replacing Joe Flacco, was it right? Joe Flacco. Yeah. People wanted him to just take over the team, and he was doing it. He's leading.
What was their record last year? 14-2.
It was
lost
crazy.
The division to the Titans.
Incredible regular season. And I remember watching the first playoff game against the Steelers in Lamar's rookie season, and just him playing horrible, and the Ravens just all the Ravens fans were just going crazy, telling him to get off the field, booing him, and maybe expectations are too high for Lamar, but he has already won an MVP, so he does need to perform in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl to take that next step.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts on the Ravens. And the Cardinals, Kyler Murray this season.
It's been fun to watch.
He's been
probably fun when he's on your fantasy team, too.
Hey, I think I have the best top 5 put together team in fantasy, but we'll get to that later.
We will get to that later.
Cardinals.
I think Kenny Drake comes back this week.
DeAndre Hopkins, of course. I think is the best receiver in the league.
We can talk about that in the future.
And then I would say, Christian Kirk, Swiss Army knife, Larry Fitz, ageless wonder, Kenyon Drake, as already mentioned. And then I think the defense is underrated.
They haven't had an amazing year. Kenyon Drake has had a very off and on year.
Up and down.
Yeah.
And then I think with the Cardinals losing Chandler Jones, all-pro D-end, that's obviously going to hurt them. But I don't think it's the Cardinals' time yet. I did think that they will make the playoffs and maybe make a little bit of noise, potentially in the wild card round. But, we can talk about that potentially.
Sure. All right, so kind of going off of this, kind of figured out our judgments. Do we have any hot takes for the rest of the NFL season? I guess I'll start. The Steelers, Ben touched on a little bit earlier. He said, me and John don't think that they're going anywhere, but he does. So, yeah, I think so far this year, they're 8-0. You look at their schedule, they've played the Ravens, and that's about it. They've beaten the Giants, they've beaten the Cowboys, they've beaten, some bad teams.
Teams that are not good.
They've tended to play to the level of their competition, I would say. And it's kind of like I sat down and watched the Cowboys-Steelers game last week, and Gary Gilbert looked good, against what is they do have a great defense, obviously. James Conner's had a good year too, but it just seems like it just seems like they're pretenders. It's pretty impressive how they have found ways to win all these games. Don't get me wrong, it's obviously really hard to go 8-0, but when you have to consistently go against teams like the Ravens every week in the playoffs, it's hard to string together wins. So, I don't think they win.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Funny stat line though, but I guess it does make sense. I saw this thing that the Steelers only had a 72% chance of winning their division at 8-0.
Yeah.
Than the Eagles did at a 78% chance to win the NFC East.
Well, the Ravens they have a much better chance to get good and kind of string together and get hot than I would say the Giants, the Cowboys, or Washington does.
It's a competitive division, the Ravens and then Cleveland.
Cleveland's got a winning record.
That defense has been
and then
very good this year.
Cincinnati, Joey B. doing his
thing.
They're
fun to watch too. I think they're much better than their record shows.
Oh yeah.
I have T. Higgins on my fantasy team too.
Obviously, defense played terrible in the beginning of the season, but they kind of put it together. I'd say their offense just needed a little push from a running back, and that's what they got with Mixon, and they've looked so good.
Okay, hot take from me, NFL. So we have an important game tonight, but we'll get to that later. However, I do think that one of the most perplexing teams this season has been the Houston Texans. Of course, they had a stacked schedule in the first half of the season, playing teams like the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Steelers, yeah. And so they've gone off course. They're 2-6, or yes, actually 2-6.
Both wins coming against the Jags.
Yes.
They almost beat the Titans too when they were undefeated.
King Henry is having a field day with these NFL defenses.
Oh, yeah.
But my hot take is that I think that the Colts will have a mid-season collapse. And depending on how the rest of the AFC turns out, I think that the Houston Texans can actually be willed by Deshaun Watson himself to maybe secure that 7th spot.
Sneak into the
playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree that extra spot this year has added something new.
This is weird.
It's
think, interesting.
And what I'm saying is I completely agree with your Steelers thing, but don't they still have to make the playoffs?
They will make
even
the playoffs.
If they don't win their conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had Carolina Panthers, who have looked so good, just very difficult schedule.
That game against the Chiefs was one of the best games I've seen all season.
Yeah, they looked so good.
Christian McCaffrey, poor guy.
Teddy Bridgewater, who was dominant with the Saints last year and who's played very well, just not put things together when he's needed to. So I don't think they're going anywhere if they get to the playoffs. But I think they still have a chance. Obviously, their receiving core is really good. If they have Christian McCaffrey back, that helped so much. And their defense is still pretty average defense.
Yeah, maybe something to kind of look for in coming years, not so much this year.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's a good transition into fantasy, and I wanted to start this segment off with a little sob story of mine that I tell everyone that knows about fantasy. So, I'm the proud owner of Lamar Jackson on my team, and let's go back to week 3, primetime Monday Night Football. The Ravens are playing the Chiefs. I'm down by 14.5 points going into the Monday night game. That's easy. That's easy money, right? Lamar Jackson, he'll get 14.5 points. That's light work. So it comes down to the wire. The Ravens don't look so great. They're losing, and they punt. And I realized, oh my God, Lamar Jackson has 14.5 points. I am tied. This is incredible. And then the Ravens make a stop. They get the ball back with 10 seconds left, down by 20 or so. And I'm like, Lamar Jackson just needs 1 yard and I win. He just needs to do something positive. And they take a knee, and he loses 1 yard, and I lose by 0.1. It's haunting. It's a
sad world that we live in fantasy.
No, it's terrible. I mean, it's not terrible for me. I won a couple of weeks ago because one of my running backs, Todd Gurley, was trying to end the game by falling down at the 1 yard line, which he has done in the past. But he accidentally fell into the end zone, giving me 6 points, but losing the game for the Atlanta Falcons.
That was funny.
I
pretty
will
uncommon.
Say we should make a new rule that if you lose to the Atlanta Falcons this season, you are automatically disqualified.
They've actually been
Saints
hot
are gonna
lately.
lose.
They look good. They look really good.
I don't know how
the last few weeks.
Well, okay, so think about this, right? I think for the past, ever since the blender in the Super Bowl, Falcons have had two or three straight 7-9 seasons, and they've started off terrible. In the beginning of the season, and then they rack up the wins.
Exactly.
Kind of the opposite of every game.
Well, that's amazing, but
it's funny
and that's the highlight of my Cowboy season is watching that comeback against the Falcons. That was amazing. Greg Zuerlein has been the MVP of this season. And personally, a sob story for me. My first pick, Nick Chubb, obviously has been out for 6 weeks. It's been tough. However, I think that I have one of the most stacked teams that you could find all through drafting. So with Nick Chubb coming back this week, I picked up James Robinson, who just came out of nowhere for the Jags.
Yeah, he really has.
Top 5 running back, week 1, picked him up, and he's done amazing. And then also 2 top 5 receivers, Lockett and Hopkins, and then, of course, Kyler Murray.
I don't know if Lockett's top 5 receiver.
He
had one really good game.
In fantasy.
He's become a boomer bust player.
It seems like DK consistently gets more than he does.
Yeah.
On a weekly
DK's looked really good, which is pretty surprising.
I would say so.
However, do you think that defense has put more of an emphasis on DK or Tyler?
I think after that 53-point game from Tyler Lockett, defenses focused a little more on him.
Yeah.
And DK Metcalf had a 40-point game.
And,
But that's good for the Seahawks, though, because now Russell Wilson can throw it down a little bit more. Tyler Lockett is much more of a route-running oriented receiver.
Yeah.
He's in the slot, and Metcalf's out wide, so Metcalf's going to get less catches for more yards. But, I mean, Lockett still gets...
He has 3 93-yard performances in a row.
Yeah.
And 4 catches in each of them.
And then can we talk about the historic point values that we put out?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So
Great.
We've had some big swings in our league this year. Ben did set the record for most points in a week with 210, which is a lot for the point values we have. It's pretty impressive.
Especially in a 14
league. A 14-man league. Very impressive. Didn't you have 3 players combined for over 100 points that week? That Seahawks-Cardinals game?
Yes, I think.
Crazy.
Was that week? No, that was a different week.
That was actually a different week. There was one week where, in addition to the 200-point game, there was one week where I was down 125 to, let's say, 60 points, right?
Yeah.
And I had 3 players left on Sunday Night Football, which is actually the Seahawks-Cardinals game. And, of course, me having Kyler, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, 53 points.
Yeah, he played out of his mind.
And then I ended up winning that week by 35 just from 3 players. Yet I'm still only 5-4.
I mean, sometimes that's all you need to win. I have Devontae Adams and Josh Allen who have carried my team when they're healthy and they're playing well.
Oh my God.
I've won 2 weeks so far just because of them. Josh Jacobs has not performed the way I wanted him to.
He had a very good week 1, and then...
Week 1, week 3, week 5, and then he just couldn't perform over 15 points after that. It was pretty terrible. Todd Gurley, who I picked up pretty late on, kind of a risk, has been really good for me. I mean, he has
a comeback story this season.
So many touches and so many touchdowns. Not the greatest amount of yards, but he is a finisher for them, and he and with that passing offense that scores so many points and gets down to the goal line that much, then it's been really nice to have him on my team.
So speaking of running backs, there's been a lot of talk, like I've kind of seen just around like Instagram and TikTok and all the socials, about zero RB kind of like being a draft strategy next year.
So care to explain what exactly that means?
Okay, zero RB, for those of you that do not understand, is basically the idea of taking 2, 3, or 4 rounds to draft solid receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks, maybe saying, I'm not going to draft a running back till the 5th or 6th round.
So you want to break fantasy football?
Well, I'm not advocating for this in any way. I'm just kind of discussing the idea of it. Because, and it does make sense. I mean, the top 2 running backs, the top 2 overall picks this year, Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, did get hurt and have missed Saquon the whole year and McCaffrey substantial time. Zeke, the 3rd pick in most leagues, he's put up good numbers, but since Dax got hurt and the Cowboys haven't been able to figure out their offense, he hasn't had a great year. And so it kind of makes sense to, I could kind of see the argument to wait and play the waivers and see if someone like a James Robinson or a Mike Davis emerges from the waivers.
Yeah.
Just kind of play it like that.
But then you have that risk of skipping. I know you wouldn't skip a Kamara or a McCaffrey or someone like that.
In this situation, you would. That's why it's not.
I couldn't do that. But
you can't bank on people getting hurt, really.
But maybe if you want to do this in your 9th or 10th or something late on in the draft, you might want to do that.
When a Calvin Ridley falls to you next year or a DK Metcalf.
But you might be missing out on a chance of an Aaron Jones or someone like that who could play out of their mind. I just don't think it's reasonable at all.
Yeah, I think it falls back on like the value of what a running back is in the NFL. Because I'll use Zeke as a prime example. Zeke came in to a horrible Cowboys team coming off a bad season. They had played Romo, had taken his last injury, Matt Castle, and of course our now offensive coordinator, who I will get to in a second, maybe. But he came in and he dominated for the next couple of seasons, and he got a big paycheck, and he capitalized on that, and he was good the season that he got that contract, and then this season he's kind of wavered off. So it's like running backs take so much hits. Maybe in favor of your argument that.
They like it's proven. I mean, they get hurt at a higher rate. That's the whole purpose behind it.
And more touches, more times you get hit. So a running back's gonna get more touches than a receiver.
Absolutely.
And they have way more of a chance.
It makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, but I don't know if it's something. If I'm willing to, maybe it's like a experimental thing.
And then maybe we see more teams going back to a running back by committee because of all the injuries that pile up.
Also,
I mean, the 49ers.
You could always make second league and try that out, see how it goes, and not do it in your main league.
Right. So, I think let's take a look ahead at this week. We've got some big matchups in college football. In an otherwise kind of underwhelming week, you don't have too many ranked matchups. But we've definitely got some solid ones in college and in the NFL. The 3 ones I really want to look at in college, you've got Notre Dame going on the road to Chestnut Hill, Boston College. I think they actually will lose. I think they're kind of sitting high on this win against Clemson. And Boston College, they're unveiling some new uniforms this week. The red bandanas, they look great. But kind of get some hype around that. And Boston College, I'm sure you all remember, played Clemson really well. I know they didn't pull it out, but I think Notre Dame's only favored by 13.5 as of right now. And I think they're kind of sitting high, and Boston College might take advantage of that. I
completely agree. I think that there has to be room for upsets. And of course, in the time of the coronavirus, you get major games that just don't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean,
in any case, and I think that Notre Dame falls this week.
Yeah. How I see it is Boston College had a very close game with Clemson. They played well. If Boston College can play how they played against Clemson for the first 3 quarters against Notre Dame and not let up in that fourth quarter like they did to Clemson. And obviously, Clemson didn't have Trevor Lawrence.
But Clemson does kind of have one of those games every year. Not necessarily last year, but the year before there was Syracuse and there was Pitt and the year before
State,
that.
All those teams.
Well, okay, and so the next matchup I wanted to look at, it's not as it's not as huge this week, but Arkansas is, I think, a better team than their record shows. The first game of the season, they outplayed Georgia for a half. They should have gotten the win against Arkansas, but there was some interesting refereeing going on. And they take on Florida this week. I think Florida does get it done. As we talked about, their offense has looked really, really good. But I think it might be closer than some people realize.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one, the Big Ten has kind of produced some interesting records so far. You've got Indiana, who's a top 10 team for the first time in our lives. And you've got an undefeated Northwestern team going into West Lafayette and taking on undefeated Purdue this week. And Northwestern, in the first week of Big Ten play, Northwestern beat Maryland and Talia Tagovailoa 43-3. And Maryland has gone on to look really good in their next 2 games, beat Minnesota and Penn State. They did get their game canceled against Ohio State this week.
Which was one of the games I was really looking forward to.
Yeah, that was going to be awesome to watch Talia take on Justin Fields.
Speaking about this crazy, Big Ten, this year has just been crazy for the Big Ten. I'm interested to see the Michigan play Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, Wisconsin is a top 25 team. They
Absolutely.
looked good in their first couple
we need
games.
to take a second to talk about Graham Mertz. He was the guy. I mean, in their first game, they've only played 1 game against, who was it, Illinois? I mean, he threw for 4 touchdowns in the first half, 300 yards. They looked amazing. Then he got COVID. Then the whole team got COVID. Now they haven't played, so now we're back. And, it's going to be exciting to see them take on Michigan, who's kind of... I mean, how warm is Jim Harbaugh's seat right now?
Not
That's
warm.
what I'm saying.
Not warm enough for him to not have been fired already.
Oh, I obviously it wouldn't be fired already, but
they need to do something. This is the game that he needs.
Yeah, if they lose this game, they have a pretty difficult schedule. I would say ahead of them.
This is a really similar situation that Tom Herman faced a couple weeks ago, taking on Oklahoma State. I think he need. I mean, if Texas loses that game, they get their 3rd loss of the season. I mean, everyone's pushing to fire him. Mm-hmm. I think has Michigan already lost twice or just once? Twice. Okay. And I mean, they take on a top 10 team. It's going to be another kind of. They need this win at home for Michigan. They need this. He needs this.
And of course, as Longhorn fans, I guess we could talk about the game against West Virginia. For a little bit.
How it plays in the Big 12 race.
It still amazes me how UT is in the race, considering that a very good OK State team and a pretty good Oklahoma team still need a couple things to happen. But I mean, UT seems to kind of be in the driver's seat.
We control our own destiny, which is not something I expected after losing to TCU and Oklahoma.
Pretty crazy. Well, I kind of want to go back to the Arkansas-Florida game.
Okay.
You only talked about Arkansas, really.
You want to brag on Florida a little bit more and their potent offense?
Florida has looked amazing this year. Kyle Trask, a senior this year, has looked so good, which we all kind of knew was going to happen.
And Kyle Pitts. Got to mention Kyle Pitts.
Oh, yeah. Just the whole team has looked very good this year.
Sure.
Defense stepped up against the Georgia running game.
Well, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to defend.
No, that running. No.
I guess so, but Stetson Bennett,
Georgia,
DeJuan Mathis.
Yeah.
Why, okay, so you see, I keep seeing this stuff. They signed JT Daniels transfers from USC to Georgia, and you've also got Jamie Newman, who's hurt, I know, but you would think JT Daniels would be the backup, and he proved himself to be a pretty solid quarterback at USC. It makes no sense why they're not playing him at Georgia. It kind of he must be hurt or discipline issues or something, because it really makes no sense. I don't understand that one at all.
Georgia, and maybe that has to do with it because Georgia,
they don't have a quarterback,
and would you argue that they've been the biggest pretenders of college football this season?
No, I wouldn't. I think their defense is the best in college football. It just They did look bad against Florida, but they did have 4 defensive starters.
I can't put
then
them.
Who can you put out of them?
Alabama or Ohio State.
I don't think so.
I mean, both of those teams have held not the best teams, but still
Georgia's
teams that can put up numbers.
But yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see what Georgia does the rest of the year. They need to get healthy. They need to find a quarterback.
Yeah.
They'll finish in the top 15, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Kind of just see if they can figure out the quarterback situation, really. But
moving on into
the NFL,
big games in the NFL.
Yep.
So tonight we have Colts versus Titans for AFC South supremacy.
Maybe tonight. Who knows? Who knows when this comes out? But maybe it happened last night.
Thursday night, November 12th.
Oh yeah,
2020.
So I think that the Titans will be able to pull this one out. The Colts defense has kind of been their saving grace this season. I think Phillip Rivers is
washed, maybe
erratic, to say the least at most.
Nice vocabulary.
But I don't think that defense and anybody could tackle the absolute man among men in Derrick Henry.
And they A.J. Brown has totally developed for them. Corey Davis.
Oh, yeah. I mean, A.J. Brown got hurt this year.
He's been great so far.
Came back. Corey Davis kind of shined after he got hurt, and both of them have now evened out and looked really, really good this year.
No, they're not a fun team at all.
And their defense...
The defense is okay.
Kenny Vaccaro leading that defense. I think they are a lot better than they are.
I actually had them in fantasy at the beginning of this year, and they didn't put up great numbers, but they had a good game last week, given they played the Bears' offense. I don't know. I think their offense is probably stronger than their defense.
Yeah.
But
and, of course, shout out to Ryan Tannehill for revitalizing his career last year.
That's so good for him. I was kind of hoping Cam Newton would do the same thing, but he was for 2 games.
Hashtag ban Adam Gase from the NFL.
I don't know if we can get into that right now. Maybe next week.
I don't know. The Patriots have just looked
bad.
It's been bad.
The Jets just can't close out games.
I think Bill Belichick needs a quarterback who has not been already taught and just... He needs someone who he can mold into the quarterback he wants. He doesn't need a Cam Newton who's already a running quarterback who...
Well, that's another topic.
So one game I really wanted to talk about was the Bills-Cardinals game this week. Which is in Arizona, and the Cardinals are favored. But like we said, the Bills have looked really strong on offense. Their defense has done enough to, keep the leads pretty large. And I think the Bills get it done on the road this week behind the attack of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and all the...
So I want to go in a different direction on that. So maybe we had a combination of the Cardinals and the Bills game last week when they played the Dolphins and the Seahawks. We get a combination of that game, and we just get a 55-52 blow.
Although the Dolphins'
shootout.
Defense has been good.
Shootout.
Not so great as Cardinals.
A shootout game, just greatest game of the season, and I think this is, 2 potential teams that people will consider contenders or pretenders. We'll see who this matchup will determine whether or not those teams are who they say that they are. And I think, contrary to Brad, I think the Cardinals can actually pull this one out.
No, yeah, I could definitely see it going either way. I just think the Bills get it done.
I don't know who's winning this. I know it's going to be a close game.
It's fun to watch.
High scoring. Both of these offenses have looked the best out of really any offenses this whole year.
Is Josh Allen looking at an MVP bid if he wins this game?
It's so hard to put. Russell Wilson, as you said, willed his team.
Yeah.
Is willing.
Is willing.
Yeah,
right.
he is.
But it's so hard to put anyone above him right now. And of course, Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are 8-1.
Right.
There isn't really an MVP on the Steelers, but you kind of get where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
The other game, maybe the final game, I'm really, excited. It has playoff implications. We got Giants-Eagles this week in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Please, I urge you, if you are listening to this, do not watch that game. Don't subject yourself to watching NFC East football if you don't have to.
Playoff implications. Eagles are favored by 3.5.
Just to lose to the Packers in the wild card.
If you have a choice to watch the Detroit Lions over that game, I would do it.
I'd watch an Atlanta Falcons game over watching that.
That's true.
The disrespect is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
We're just getting her on.
I'm a Cowboys fan. How can you even say that?
We're just joking. Although the Lions have actually looked pretty good this year. So
yeah, I think that's a good place to end it off, right at 45 minutes. This was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But I don't know. We just kind of went off on our tangents. Let us know if anybody made it this far, how you liked it, how you like listening to this. If you're interested in basketball or baseball or other sports, see if we can do some of that stuff too. And I'm very excited to see how this all plays out and see if we're right about things because we just are so educated. And yeah.
The Sideliners.
That's the Sideliners.
Yep.
The podcast where nothing is actually opinion because all we say is facts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you to my co-hosts, my lovely co-hosts.
Pleasure doing business with you boys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Hopefully we'll see y'all again next week.
Organized and better, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.